Hello and welcome to Clamp, the weekly podcast where we discuss all things related to creating, living, and making projects. I'm your host, Grant Alexander, and joining me as always is Maker Mackie and Jessy Ratfink. Hello and welcome. Today, we wanted to talk about this fatal flaw that some people have, and or the opposite of it, where it might be a good thing. And that's trying to make all of your hobbies into a business. So I want to go back to high school. Imagine it. You don't have any money because you're in high school. And everything that you find you love, like you turn out that you enjoy doing something that is like, for me, I enjoyed airbrushing. And you can make money airbrushing. And I really enjoyed airbrushing. And I went, I'd like money, right? I'd like to buy things that I can't afford because I'm in high school. So I opened up a business airbrushing things. I called it atmospheric airbrushing. I had posters made and everything.
So
Designed
fancy.
a whole thing in Photoshop 3. Anyways, all that to say, really fun. That was all fun. Designing up posters, fun. Doing the graphic design portion, great. Loved that aspect. As soon I got my first client, the thing they wanted, I did not want to paint. I said, this sucks. And I just, so I did it, and it took forever. And I just, I could not get motivated to do it. The money just didn't seem to gel with how much I really wanted to do it. So then I was like, okay, next time I'll negotiate a little better. Did a couple more, and I hated every aspect of it. And I hated turning that hobby into a business, because sometimes that ruins your hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And Adam and Jessy have had similar experiences, so we wanted to talk about it. Are you ruining your hobby by trying to make it into a business? Or is it like in Office Space when they talked about, if you meet with your guidance counselor and they ask you, what would you do if you had $1 million, which isn't a lot of money now, but if you were independently wealthy, what would you do? And if they said, if you'd fix old cars, you should become a mechanic, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think I would want to become a mechanic, even though I might enjoy fixing old cars if I had nothing better to do with my if I didn't need to make money. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So anyways, I'll pass it over to you two, whoever wants to go first.
Growing up, I was always told not to make your hobby your full-time job.
Interesting.
And that always stuck with me until I tried to make my hobby my full-time job. And the whole point is that your hobby is meant to be like your escape, right? And if you make it your full-time job, you've then lost that. You've lost your escape. It's just something you have to do every day. And
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that it's probably just my personality, but trying to make things a business for me has just ruined everything, because I put too much pressure on myself, for one. And for two, I don't like doing the same thing all the time. Yesterday, I sold my CNC. And the bigger part of me selling that is because I bought it trying to make a business, because that was more just to convince my wife to let me get it, to be honest. But I just got over having to do all the work, and it was the same repetitive tasks all the time. Yes, the thing that came out of it was different, but it was still the same process every time. And I don't like having to do the same thing over and over.
Are you sure about that? Because I think you've rebuilt your workbench like 15 times since I've known you.
No. Yeah. I'm just not happy with anything.
Seems like you like to do the same thing over and over.
I like my current workbench, but that's store bought.
Yeah.
I just don't like anything that I make, I guess.
Fair.
Oh no. So for me, it's very much the same. It's the pressure I put on myself that sort of kills the whole process, and it's pressure I put on myself even in my daily job. Like pretty much hobby job, daily job, anything. I bring the pressure to myself and make myself miserable. Very good at that. I think that there are some people who just really thrive in that chaos and constant deadlines and I am not one of those people. Like when my embroidery business started getting really, really busy, I was not like confident enough to up my prices or make like wait times longer, like, oh, this is going to take 1 to 2 weeks because I have 13 other people in front of you or whatever. I was never strong enough to do that. And so I just
Right.
kept myself in a very high pressure situation at all times. It was so miserable. And yeah, I think it's a lot about how confident someone is in themselves and what they're doing, because I tend to lack that all the time.
Right. And this brings me back to my airbrushing business. What I actually think the problem was not that I didn't want to do what other people were doing, is that I didn't feel confident in their whatever their design was. So I didn't want to like the things I was airbrushing. Once you painted it, it was done. Like there was no repainting something. So they're remote control car bodies. You paint them from the inside. So as soon as you put any paint, you can't take the paint off. It's done, right? You got to buy a new one. So if you screw one up, you got to buy a new one, right? And if you screw two up, now you've made no money, right? And this is where I
Yeah.
think the actual problem was is I tried to turn it into a business before I should have turned it into a business, right? Like
A
people
lot of
jump
people do that
into
too.
yeah, they jump into a new hobby
Definitely.
and they immediately start going, "How can I make money on this hobby?"
Yep.
And in reality, what you got to do is like figure out, is this something I really want to do for money?
Yeah, definitely. I know so many people, like from where I grew up, everybody is like hustling all the time. There's all these MLMs everywhere, and everybody's like making jewelry and trying to sell it online or buying stuff at antique shops and trying to sell it on eBay. And it's just this constant mindset of like everything that I do needs to be profitable. And it's just,
Yep.
I understand it because, and there are a lot of places here in the US where you struggle to make ends meet with like a 40-hour-a-week job. So I totally understand it, but it's too much after a little while.
Yeah, and I think that's I think if you're comfortable and I've listened to the Brian House talk on the Work For It podcast a lot about like, people who are comfortable may not be like working for it. And it's like, yeah, they're not, but at the same time, sometimes if you're comfortable, then you can enjoy your hobbies, right?
Mhm.
A lot of second generation or third generation wealth, like those people who inherit a lot of money, guess what they end up wanting to do? Like artists.
Open a
And
business.
no, they don't want to open a business. They want to do nothing but business. They want to do artistry. They want to be like,
Oh,
they want to take the opposite end because they don't need to work. And so they're not working for it. And they're seen as lazy, but they're not lazy. Humans don't want to work. Like we don't. It's not in our genes to want to work. And I know people are going to say, "No, it's in mine." And like, yeah, I get like you want to be busy and you want to have things accomplished because of what you do, but you don't want uh, you don't want to. You want to do the things that you want to do,
Yeah.
right? Like if I'm quoting Weezer here, right? I want to do the things that I want to do. I don't want to. I don't know. I don't want to do what someone else wants me to do. And I think that's where I think entrepreneurs can do really well with turning their hobby into a business is if they really feel passionate about something and that's actually what they want to do, then yes, it makes sense.
I think so. The whole reason why I thought about this topic is I foreshadowed it last week, but I have decided to, for the foreseeable future, give up on YouTube. And let's not say give up because I don't want to make out that I'm quitting. But I think that with YouTube, it got to a point where I was like, I need to make this a business. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time. And then I was
Mm-hmm.
trying too hard to do what other people want me or what I think other people would want to see and want me to do. And that's where I lost interest in it. Whereas since I stopped doing YouTube, I've just been fucking around in the shop, doing whatever I want, just playing and taking my time, and I feel so much happier in that. I've got my hobby back because I don't have that stress over myself of like, oh, people aren't going to be interested in this.
Right.
So,
And that's, I hear a lot of people, like a lot of the bigger names go, should this be content? And we've had that conversation before about like, should, like, I know Bob from I Like to Make Stuff talks about a lot, like, he wants to just make something and he doesn't always want to make it a video. But he's
yeah,
constantly
exactly.
worried, like, am I spending this time making this thing? Should it be a video? And now you're like overthinking and overanalyzing whether or
Yep.
not your hobby should be a business.
Yeah.
And
I also, I know this is gonna sound weird, but I like to dodge things. I like to be dodgy. In the sense of, so I'm revamped this desk, and when you see it, when I actually put pictures up and stuff, you'll understand what I'm saying. But it's a cheap desk from Kmart, and I replaced the top with the old drawing desk that we had, and then on the front there's a shelf a little bit further down from the top, and it's all like made out of chipboard and everything. And what I've done is I've put drawer fronts on there, which are actually just on hinges that fold down that I can then access in. So they're like fake drawer fronts. But if I was making YouTube videos, I would have to actually make drawers. And
why?
Because I don't know. In my head, I'm like, people are going to be really judgy of like, why would you do it like that? Like, just put drawers on it. Like, I don't know.
No, I like this idea. This is a life hack.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like when I make like YouTube videos and stuff, that I can't do the dodgy things that I am happy with. Like, I'm happy with them how they are. Whereas I feel like people are going to be like, that's not the right way to do it. You shouldn't do that.
Have you gotten a lot of those comments though?
I don't get.
Be honest. Exactly. So you're worried about something that doesn't happen, and this is where a lot of people,
Yes,
like, when they're thinking about what stops them from turning it into a business and to turn it the other way, is they worry about things that likely are not going to happen.
Yeah.
Right?
Every time I've
totally.
made something recently, I'm always too busy worrying about what people are going to think about it to actually what needs to be done.
Right. And so that is one reason to not take your hobby into a business. Right. So I recently had a Facebook reel that's going big, and it's me using a table saw, my table saw, to resaw wood. So it's like cut it in half the wide way. And I've had people telling me that I shouldn't use a table saw, I should use a bandsaw. There are a lot of people telling me that I'm doing it wrong because I'm not using a guard or a riving knife. And I'm like, well, not
Which
every
doesn't
saw
come with.
has a riving knife, and
Yeah.
it's not capable of accepting a riving knife on my saw. I would love a riving knife. I would absolutely love it, because then I would never have to take the stupid splitter off. But I have to when you're doing resawing and you have to flip you can't, if you can't do a full cut, you can't put the big giant splitter on it, right? Anyways, it's very frustrating. That part's frustrating because I just go, do you not understand that I'm not doing this unsafely because I want to not use a riving knife. I think they're great. Like, I'm not using it because not all saws come with it. Like, the original table saw was a fucking like motor and attached to a thing mounted in a saw straight up and down, right? And they've evolved since then to tilt and have guards and all this, amazing stuff. But
My first ever table saw was literally a circular saw screwed to a piece of MDF, turned upside down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll bet you
Seen
that
lots
table
of those.
saw. That table saw is probably a lot better than your like cheap table saw.
Yep. But I would never do that on YouTube because people would be like, that is the most unsafe thing I've ever seen.
Do it, because guess what? Fuck them. That's why.
Well, I don't know. See, like, some people can handle that. They're like, I remember back in the day on Instructables when we were really trying to push for views, we would post just absurd content, just stuff that was like really weird and off the wall. And we would get a lot of engagement, but a lot of it was like bad engagement. And I feel like some people can handle it and it just doesn't bother them. But for me, no, I cannot handle a bunch of people just chirping at me about all the things I did wrong. And like, even though I don't post on YouTube, I worry about it if I ever start, like, yeah, lots of worrying for sure.
I will say, if you want negative comments, go on Reddit and Facebook. And everywhere else is generally, like, people talk about YouTube being negative. YouTube's not that negative. YouTube is nothing compared to Facebook.
Oh,
Nothing
yeah.
at all.
Facebook is awful,
Reddit.
which is why I'm not there.
Reddit's fucking savage.
You know what? I haven't found Reddit to be that bad, but also, like, it's not as easy to post like a video to Reddit as it is to
Yeah.
like the thing about like Reddit is like they downvote you for posting a video. It's like, yeah, of course I'm posting my video. Here's the project I made. They're like, well, I don't like you posting your that's self promotion. Like, it's not self like everything's
You
self promotion.
post something in DIY and then they have a go at you for it being DIY.
I think Instructables might actually be banned from DIY because they got so mad that people were posting stuff and wanting them to click through. So yeah, I'm pretty sure we're still banned.
Oh, really? No, unless that's recent, because they allowed me to do our DIY. I could link to Instructables. They were
okay, so maybe they've relaxed.
It wasn't an auto approval though, right? Whereas if you do certain other stuff, it would be automatically approved. It wasn't automatically deleted, but it wasn't automatically approved. And I was like, it's an Instructables post. It's clearly step by step. And they're like, okay, I'll let it through this time.
Yeah, very touchy over there.
Agreed. That's the word. Reddit, anyways, let's not go down the Reddit hole. Let's talk more about, are you ruining your hobby? And I don't think you're ruining your hobby. I think you're not realizing what your hobby is. And so I was watching TikTok and I saw Mark Rober was on a thing and on a podcast, and he was talking to the person about, he still edits his videos. He still finds the story. Yeah.
Wow.
And he was talking about why he does that. And he does that because he got into content creation to make those stories. Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, that's the part that is me. And he's like, could someone do it better? He's like, maybe they could, but it wouldn't be me. And so he said, this is why I got into it. And as soon as you get, you start having a team of people, you're not doing the thing you set out to do. You're no longer doing that thing. Now you're doing another thing. Right? Now you're managing people. And I think that's the same with a lot of people who get this into a business, is all of a sudden you're not doing the thing you set out to do, making stuff and videoing it and maybe even editing videos. You're going out there to drive engagement, you're worried about the wrong things. You're not worried about the thing that made you happy. You're not worried about the things like you were talking about your YouTube videos, Adam. You're worried about how to drive videos and drive views, and not about making a video that makes you happy.
We've talked about it in the past. Like, we talked about, if you got to a point where you're going to hire someone, who would it be? And I would definitely be editing my videos until it was unable to be done. Like, I like editing. I find editing really fun when it's at my own accord. It's when I have a deadline, or I couldn't edit for other people. Like with the podcast, for instance, we have a deadline. It's got to be edited by a certain time every single week. That stresses me out. Whereas when I have my own videos to edit, where it doesn't matter if it doesn't get out or whatever, it doesn't bother me as much. I actually enjoy it.
Yeah,
well, I'm sorry to put that.
That's always my problem too.
No, it's fine. I'm not complaining. I'm just saying that I couldn't make it a job. I love editing, but I wouldn't like to do it as a job.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, as someone that is doing a lot of editing now, I kind of like it, but I'm also only doing shorts and reels, so it's nothing like the podcast.
Well, then you know what, and I think
Podcasting.
about the podcast, it really isn't that difficult because you're not doing weird transitions. You're not adding an extra. It's like one clip that you're clipping down a little bit, right? In
Yeah,
terms
yeah,
of
exactly.
editing, the annoying part is just like it takes as long as the podcast takes.
It just takes
'Cause you,
so long. It takes longer.
well,
Yeah.
yeah,
Because
but
like
it
I'm
takes a
listening to the
minimum.
podcast and then I've got to go like I have to cut out any silence and then go back to make sure that it doesn't sound weird. But see, the good thing is the way that I edit the video, it's not that bad because it's so easy to just go, all right, well, I need to cut out this silence. All right, so that person had full screen. Now we'll go to a Brady Bunch or whatever. So I don't need those weird transitions to make it look. But then I'm noticing now with the reels, because I'm cutting out like the tiniest little silences, I can't be switching between cameras every every second because that's just going to be annoying to watch. So you do see those jumps of people jumping where I cut stuff out.
In the reels, that is an acceptable thing because they're so
Yeah.
time limited that people realize that you're cutting natural speech into something that it isn't natural. I know I am very bad at long pauses. I know this because people cut me off all the fucking time. And especially at work, and I've lost it on people at work. I'm like, I wasn't fucking done. I haven't said shut the fuck up, but I basically have said shut the fuck up. I wasn't fucking done speaking, right? To people I work with, and I go, I don't know how I still work here. But anyways,
that's my
all that to
silence
say,
moment.
yeah, I have these long pauses, and I don't know what to do about it, but I know what they are. What they are is me catching up to what I've already said. Going, did I say all the things I wanted to say? Yes, I did. All right, let's go.
My wife and I were on the way to sports yesterday afternoon with the kids in the car, and we're having a conversation. And every time I took a breath, my son's like wanting to try and like talk over the top of us. And we kept saying to him, mate, we're trying to talk. Like, just give us a minute. Like, not to talk over the top of us. Like, just give us a minute. Because, like every time you have a talk with your wife or whatever, your kids automatically have so much shit they want to talk about. And he's like, but you keep stopping. And I'm like, I'm taking a fucking breath, mate. Like, just give me a second.
Yeah. So, your hobbies, are they monetizable? And should you monetize them? And I think there's a big difference between turning your hobby into something that can potentially make a little bit of money and something that like is full-timeable or like actually pays the bills. And I think, trying to sell, if you enjoy making bowls on a lathe and you just want to make the bowls and you've got 500 bowls now, you got to go, I got to do something about all the goddamn bowls in my house. Well, yeah, it makes sense to try and sell them, right? Or give them away if you're financially independent, right? But if you want to like kind of pay for the next bowl, I get that. But it gets to a point if you're starting to get requests and you're getting to this point where you can't keep up with it, I think it becomes problematic. And I think it stops being a hobby. And it stops being that thing that lets you get away. And it starts being another stressor in your life, potentially, and not a positive stressor.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I think a lot of the issue is that trying to make money from a hobby goes one of two ways. Either it goes really well and you are just sort of overloaded and you're able to scale up and make it into a business, or it's just kind of crickets and you can't really find your audience. And the worst part about the first one is that a lot of people don't understand how to scale up properly. And that's when it all falls apart. Like, that's when it fell apart for me, because it was, I wasn't setting the right sort of like standards for everything. I didn't really take my own mental well-being into health, like the business plan. I guess I was just like, I'm going to get it all done and it's going to happen and it's going to happen. But yeah, I don't know. It's a very steep jump from like making a little money on the side on like Instagram to like, oh shit, I have a lot of orders to fill and how do I do this?
And I think that's a big thing between products and services. So like making content is a service, right? If 100 people see my video or 1,000,000 people see my video, I made that one video. And it's great
Yeah.
that video can go everywhere, right? If you make one embroidery thing and then 100 people order it, well, that becomes problematic. You only have so
Oh
much
my
time.
god. Yep, that was me and the Not Today Satan embroidery for like
Yeah.
2 years.
I feel like I definitely don't want to give up content creation. And like primarily when I talk about like this topic, I'm talking about content creation. But I feel like I tried to get myself into the wrong content creation for me. So like YouTube videos, I feel like that's a lot of pressure on myself, and I'm sure everyone that's done YouTube has gone through it. I'm not saying I'm the only one, but I feel like the short form stuff is more what I can get into, because all I need to do is take some progress shots along the way, maybe some panning video shots or anything like that. But I feel like you can make things a lot more interesting in like a minute, like quickly cutting between it, as opposed to trying to make a full YouTube video interesting. Like, that's something I've always struggled with, is like, how do I make, unscrew this, put this on there, screw this back on, interesting. Like
Right.
literally 4 steps. You know what I mean? Like this desk, yeah, it's going to be, I reckon it'll be a really cool reel, but if I tried to make it a YouTube video, I took the top off, I put a new top on, and I painted the legs. You know what I mean? Like there's nothing to it.
And you were doing like some really cool, I don't know, you called it like B-roll stuff, and I never liked B-roll because I'm like, it's not B-roll when you're making the thing, and the subject of
Yeah.
the thing is right, whatever. You were doing some really cool, like, I remember you got really into like that editing and
The one with the plagium, yeah.
Yeah, like you did some really cool stuff with that, and I think that would be a really good reel.
Exactly.
And it didn't work well as a YouTube video because people with the YouTube video are expecting, I don't know what, but they're not expecting that.
Yeah.
Well, and I'm curious about this. When you make a video for YouTube, do you have a minimum time that you're shooting for? Like, is that another thing added onto it?
I personally don't. I try to aim for like 10 minutes because that's what people recommend. But whatever it comes out as, what it comes out as to me. I don't actually really look at how long it goes for. But if I get to 10 minutes, I'm pretty happy with that.
Yeah, I'm always curious about that because I always see people talking online about the optimal YouTube video, like length.
I also, but in saying that, I try not to make a video that goes for like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
So I try to make the video the length the video needs to be to tell the story I want to tell. And the unfortunate part is YouTube says, I'd like your videos to actually be 4 or 5 times longer than that. Right? Like, I make an 8-minute video and they're like, oh, 8 minutes is no longer the number. We want them to be 16 to 20 minutes. Right?
Yeah.
And then you'll get 500,000 views. And I'm like, the most frustrating part is I make a video and it's 4 minutes long, 50% at like view retention. And then I make another video, 8 minutes long, 50%. I'm like, okay, I'll make a 12-minute video, 50%. I'm like, can you guys just watch more of my video? You're watching more of my video. Just, I made it this long because I wanted it to be this long. Just watch it.
It's funny. So one of my favorite YouTube channels, everyone's going to judge me, I don't give a fuck, is Sidemen, which is like these 7 guys in the UK, and they do, I don't know, stupid videos. But like most of their videos go for like an hour and a half. And every time one comes out, I'm like, oh yeah, cool, I got an hour and a half video to watch. And then they'll every now and then they'll put out one that goes for like half an hour, and I'm like, what the fuck? Why is there only half an hour this week? Like,
I watch 30 to 40-minute videos on the regular.
yeah.
But they're not maker videos.
Yep.
No, this isn't. No, I don't do making.
If it's a maker video and it's 40 minutes long, I don't watch it. If it's 30 minutes long, I don't watch it. If it's 20 minutes long, I gotta really like that person. If it's 10 minutes, I start going in the watch it. If it's 5 minutes, I'll watch anything in 5 minutes.
Yep. Yeah.
Like, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I'll watch like 15 of someone's videos at 5 minutes, but if they're a 20-minute video, like, I stopped following a few people because they started making only 20-minute videos, and they've blown up since then. And I'm like,
That's what, like I said, that's where I always struggled, was trying to get that story that goes for that long. Because like you make a cabinet, Okay, I made a box, I put some doors on, it's done. Like, how do you
Right.
make that go for 20 minutes? I have never been
It-
able to do it. I don't understand.
and I have a problem because, like, and I know this is definitely a problem, and we're kind of like off topic a little bit, but
Oh, well.
I know the story. So when I'm editing it, I want it faster. I want it faster and faster and faster because I know the story. And it's the same problem. Like, I've always condensed everything to like the minimum viable product to tell it. And you lose a little bit of flavor that way. But I watched a TikTok the other day about this. It was like a joke, and it's like this guy looks at himself and says, "Wow, this food is amazing. I thought you said you can't cook." And the guy says, "Well, I I can cook. I just don't cook because it's not a good return on investment." And the guy says, "Well, what do you mean?" He's like, "Well, like it took me an hour and a half to make this meal and 5 minutes to eat it or whatever." The guy says, "Yeah, okay." He's like, "And if I had a Hungry Man dinner, it would take 3 minutes and the same amount of time to eat it, and it would be 80% as good." He went, eh. He went, "That's what I'm talking about." Like it, and it makes sense to me. Like that's how I think. It's I go, I hate cooking because I don't see the return on that, and I feel it's really really inefficient to cook for a singular family. When I worked in a restaurant, I liked cooking because it was like everything was like laid out and like the fun part was like mashing it all together to make it work with all the other things coming down, and it was like finding the little bits of efficiencies that you could while you were doing it. But cooking for myself, I hate doing it.
So, speaking of this week's sponsor, HelloFresh, Grant must
No,
like things like HelloFresh.
no, we don't. You know what? We don't
We don't
actually
have
do
sponsors.
sponsors because we have amazing Patreon supporters
Mm-hmm.
like the ones at the F Clamp level. I'm going to mention specifically Brent Jarvis from Clean Cut Woodworking, Vincent Ferrari from Digitally Creative, Scott from Dad It Yourself DIY, Joe Herdina, Lawrence from Maritime Knife Supply, Rich from Low End Design, and David Wood from DW Wood Wilds. And there is a whole bunch of other people who support us, and I want to say thank you very much to all of them because without you guys, I get this is our little hobby podcast, and we are trying to make it into a bit of a business. That would be nice. No, we're not actually trying that hard, but we do really appreciate because there's things like we have a website, and that website costs money, and without your support, we wouldn't have it. And then we wouldn't be able to host things like the Clamp Challenge, which we might need to start talking about again for the 2023 Clamp Challenge.
Yeah.
But all that to say is everyone who supports this gets, no matter the level, as low as $1, gets access to the pre-show and the after show. The pre-show, if you didn't know, we talk about what we've been up to this week, as well as sometimes some fun stuff. And then the after show, we sometimes talk about secret stuff. And everyone, of course, also gets a keychain, a leather keychain made by me. I just sent one out in the mail earlier this week. And you can sign up for that at patreon.com/clamp. And I'd like to say, I understand if you can't support us on financially. I appreciate everyone who listens, everyone who shares the show, and all that. I really appreciate you all. And with that,
Yep, y'all are
on to
awesome.
CLAMPmendations.
CLAMPmendations. All right, so for this week, my CLAMPmendation is the Horror Virgin podcast. It's all about horror movies, and basically the premise is that Todd hates horror movies, and Paige and Mikey love them, and they force Todd to watch it. And it's wonderful. It's sort of like my comfort podcast. It's the one I always listen to when I don't have anything new on my list. Like, I just go back and back to it. And then they are probably the people I've supported on Patreon the longest. Their content is just amazing. So if you like horror movies and you like comedy, I say go for it because I probably listened to their whole catalog in about 6 months.
Wow.
You like crime podcasts?
I used to, but I don't know, something happened and I got tired of true crime. And so I haven't listened to a lot. But that used to be my primary thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like the same. I was obsessed, and then I kind of sort of haven't listened in a while. But there's so many reels of like the famous one, like the Australian guy. I can't remember what it's
Oh,
called.
Case File. Yeah.
Case
I
File.
love that
And
one.
like, yeah, so many like it's like what people think I'm listening to while I fold the washing, and it's like some music, and then it's like so and so stabbed so and so. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. If only I had been on Instagram and making embroidery videos around that time, I could have had like 20 of those.
Well, my claimation for this week is a little bit of a cop out, but not. I've actually been really obsessed with watching Nerd Forge. Speaking of getting into hobbies, I would love to. Like, I wish I had a talent like her. Like that, making those castles and miniatures and stuff is so
She's
freaking cool. Like,
amazing.
it's so cool. And I do actually want to get into 3D printing stuff and painting it. So, getting onto that. But her latest video, I lost my finger, so I made another one. It's really cool, and it's really cool. Like she talks about her, like the story of how she lost her finger was a table saw accident, so it was actually relatable a little bit.
Oh, wow.
But it was so funny reading the comments of people being like, "How did we never notice she was missing her pinky?"
I never noticed.
Yeah.
I never noticed, and I went back to like a video from 5 years ago. It's missing. It's insane. Like. Everyone, like all the comments, like her personality is so bubbly that we didn't even notice that her finger was missing. Like it's just nuts. And I thought, oh, maybe she always tries to hide it. But I've been watching like a lot of her older videos, and like it's right there. Like her hand is right in front, like in the middle of the frame, and you just don't notice it. Crazy.
That is nuts. I have been following her forever. Had no idea and hadn't watched that video yet. So wow.
Yeah.
Oh.
Great same personality. What did I say?
No, well, I'd say most people aren't looking at her personality when they're missing her finger. That's all I'm saying. Is that most people don't look at people's personality. If they're missing something.
I understand what you're saying.
So there's actually a really funny ad, and it's a ad where there's a guy missing a tooth. And the ad is, if you think dentistry is like a waste of time or whatever, it's funny because you notice this guy's tooth when in reality he's actually also missing a eyebrow. And then you look and you go, fuck, the guy's also missing an eyebrow. But all I saw was the tooth, right? Because
it's the whole,
we focus in on certain things, right?
Yeah. It's the whole gorilla walking through the frame video.
Exactly.
Exactly.
And her personality, you know what? We should invite Nerd Forge on. I want to talk to them.
Yes.
Reach out to them. Do it. Get on it,
I mean,
Adam.
Her partner, you're the guy. Her partner, I can't remember his name.
Okay.
He's really good as well. Like he's amazing at the work he does. He does mainly like the background, like the electronic side of it and all that sort of stuff. But he also does some painting and stuff as well if she needs help. But he's like really talented as well. And then her friend that does that actually paints miniatures, like her Instagram is insane.
And like their thought process between making like why to make a video and stuff like that is really, really good, I think.
Really good, yeah.
And I'd love to have them on to talk. So if you guys are listening, I'd love to not you guys. If you people are listening, I don't know.
If you people
No, I know.
if y'all are listening.
If y'all are listening, I'll turn Southern. I would love to have you on. Okay.
Everyone bombard.
Edit that out, Adam. Edit it out. Edit it out. I would like to recommend everyone go check out Tom Silva. If that name sounds familiar to you, it's because he was from This Old House. I think he's still on it. But he actually has a really good Instagram and TikTok where he does like the fun, catchy stuff that you would expect a teenager to do. But he's not a teenager. And he just has really fun like reels and TikToks and whatever. So we'll link his and I'd love to have Tom Silva on. If anyone knows how to get in touch with him and have him on a podcast, that would be like having one of your childhood heroes on your podcast. I remember watching him. Yeah, I remember watching that as a kid. And like, it was like watching This Old House and Shade Tree Mechanic and Trucks and the Power Block TV. Anyways, lots of those like Spike TV and PBS. Who's like how you spent your weekend flipping between the two. Anyways, go check it out. He's got some great reels and they're funny. So
Oh my god, there's a reel of him going through Home Depot on a Segway, pushing a trolley.
oh yeah,
That's so good. What is
He's got
this
some
old
good
house?
ones.
I hear about it all the time.
it's just like a TV show.
Yeah, like
Where
a
they-
home improvement
Cool,
sort
thanks.
of thing. Yeah, it's like every episode they like, are fixing something different a lot of the time, or they'll walk
Is it
through
like
like
someone's
different
house, like random people's
techniques for
houses?
stuff. What that makes me what there is a Canadian show about a contractor and I cannot remember the name of it.
Mike Holmes.
Yes, Mike Holmes. I love that guy. I don't know. He just popped up into my head when we were talking about that. I love that
Yeah.
show.
I'd love to have him on the show too. If anyone knows Mike Holmes, I'd love to have him. Homes on Homes and all that stuff. That was mandatory viewing in my house growing up.
Yeah, that's the good shit.
Yeah. So, anyways, we have an Ask Jessy Anything. It's from Bryce over at Waffle Beaver. He says, what is a pet peeve you observe when reading instructables?
So I have a lot, and I had to think about this for a while, but I think I've determined that my major pet peeve is when a person just launches into the product, or not the product, but the project without telling you why, what it does, like what is the purpose of this thing. There's so many times where I'm reading through an Instructable and I'm like piecing it together as I go. And then like maybe they'll have a video at the end and I finally understand, but it took me 10, 15 minutes to understand when they could have just told me in the
Right.
like, intro of the Instructable. So yeah, I would say just people assuming that everyone is following their thought process and that they just jump right in. I feel like it's really important to give context because you never know who your reader is. Like, I don't know. I just think people assuming that everyone is at the same level of expertise as them is not good. So yeah, I like a lot of context and a lot of explanation right up front.
I like
That's
it.
interesting because that's kind of, I think, why I struggled so much with making YouTube videos was that I just assumed that people knew what they were doing, and it's like, yeah, I made a box. Everyone knows how to make a box. So,
But it's even more than that. Why did you make the box? And you know why you made the box, but
yeah,
you're assuming your audience understands why you're making the box.
yeah, exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah, we
I feel
always
like
say stories. Like we want people to tell stories through the Instructable, which sounds really silly, but like I think it's the best way to connect with the reader.
and I feel like that's the problem with short form content is we've lost a lot of those stories because it's difficult. It's not impossible. It's more difficult to put a story in 60 seconds than it is in 20 minutes. Anyways, Adam, do you have a slang of the week?
I do. We're going to do the last three of Jared's.
Ooh.
All right. So first one is a brolly.
Okay, don't do three. Do one, and I'll forget by next week. Don't worry. A
I want to
brawly.
do three.
Brawly.
No, because we gotta. It's the whole thing. Is you gotta go. Gotta get this thing of the week going for more than 1 week. So a brawly.
I was going to finish it after this week, but okay.
No, we got the
Okay,
next
a
couple.
brawly.
Brawly. Use it in a sentence, please.
I could, but it's going to give it away.
Well, that's why I asked for that hint.
I'm going to say a wheelbarrow because I have no idea.
Okay. If this rain keeps going, I'm going to need to get out the brolly.
If this brain.
Rain.
Shopvac?
Oh, umbrella.
Umbrella. Oh, no? Yeah?
Yeah. Yeah.
That makes so much more sense.
I don't know how you got wheelbarrow, but
Well, because I was thinking trolley, dolly, like
okay, yeah,
moving
okay, that makes
things.
sense, yeah.
Like,
That makes
yeah.
Yeah. When you said a brawly, I was like, what can you combine a like dolly with Something with a B. So I wheelbarrow, Brawly. I like it. I think you know
See,
what?
Yes.
I guess because I know the answer, right? In my head, I'm like, it's a brella. So it's like brolly.
Yeah.
You Aussie slang does not make, or like, is this one from Australia actually? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah.
So-
Sometimes it makes perfect sense, and sometimes I have no idea.
Well, the one that I'm now going to do next week is my favorite.
Okay.
Ooh.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I want to thank TF Turning for the theme song. If you like the theme song, let us know. If you don't like it, let him know. I want to, let everyone know. We're going to start this new thing. It's called Any Other Business. And any other business, we might refer to a previous episode and some comments we got from listeners or some answers that we want to give to listeners. And in this case, I'm going to be talking about something that Waffle Beaver, who was the Ask Jessy Anything, he actually messaged us on the Instagram and talked about this thing called limbic friction. And it's the gap between wanting to do something and actually doing that thing. And it
I
is
feel like it could be a really cool topic.
yeah, well, it is. It's what we talked about with, are you wasting? It's a part of like, are you wasting your day?
Yeah.
Adam, really, you got to stop moving your microphone around.
Sorry. My back's hurting.
Yeah, just don't move it. So it's a really cool thing. It's I can't remember the name of the person who came up with this term, but it's a really interesting thing of like, I feel like I have a lot of limbic friction because I want to do things and I don't actually do them often
Yep.
because I get in this like problem of like this executive dysfunction problem of like just sitting there not doing the thing until I have an external thing that pushes me. Anyways, it was just an interesting thing that I thought deserved a little shout out after our previous episode with Jeremy.
Yeah, I like the term. I've never heard that before. Limbic friction. Yeah, that's good.
As soon as you said it, all I kept thinking about was the fact that I would love to do what Nerdforge is doing.
Yeah. All right. Well, you'd like to cut off your pinky finger and make a new
I
one?
tried to cut off my finger again.
Yeah.
Literally a centimeter down from where I went to hospital for slicing my finger with a Stanley knife. I cut it again today with a
Oh my
Stanley knife.
god.
But it's only because I was trying to fix my car and I got really frustrated. I threw a tantrum, and yeah. Oh,
Well, let's
No
talk about that.
tantrums with sharp objects.
Let's talk about that in the after show.
yeah. Deal.
All right. Goodbye.
Bye.